The cold metal floor felt like ice against Lee Hyun-woo's back. He had been lying in the same position for hours, maybe days. Time moved differently in this place. The alien ship hummed around him with strange sounds he still could not understand. After 3 months of being trapped here, his cell was small and dark. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that never changed. No windows, no clocks, nothing to tell him if it was day or night. Not that it mattered in space. The energy chains around his wrists and ankles felt heavy. They glowed the same blue color as the walls. Every time he tried to move too much, they would shock him with painful electricity that made his whole body shake. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and tried to remember home. Earth seemed so far away now. He could still picture his small apartment in Seoul, the view of the city from his window, the smell of his neighbors cooking in the hallway. Simple things that he never thought he would miss so much. The sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his cell. Heavy footsteps that belonged to the aliens who had captured him. Hyun-woo knew that sound well by now. It meant they were coming for him again. Another day of questions. Another day of pain. The door slid open with a hiss. 3 alien figures walked into his cell. They were tall, much taller than any human. Their skin looked like gray stone, and their eyes were black as night. They wore dark uniforms with symbols that Hyun-woo could not read. These were Krillians, members of a race that thought humans were weak and stupid. The one in front was High Inquisitor Thekmos. Hyun-woo had learned his name during the first week of being here. Thekmos was the one who asked all the questions, the one who controlled the pain machines, the one who thought he could break any human mind with enough time and the right tools. "Good morning, human, Finland," Thekmos said in broken English. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Are you ready to talk today?" Hyun-woo said nothing. He had learned not to speak unless he had to. Every word could be used against him or against his people. Still playing the strong soldier? Thekmos moved closer. "We know you are not important. Just a transport pilot who was in the wrong place. Why do you make this so hard for yourself?" The alien was wrong, but Hyun-woo would never tell him that. Let them think he was nobody special. Let them think he was just a simple pilot who got caught up in a battle he did not understand. It was better than the truth. The truth was that Captain Lee Hyun-woo was one of the most important people in the Earth Defense Force. He had designed the Seoul Defense Grid, the network of weapons and shields that protected Earth and all the human colonies. He had commanded fleets in battles that saved millions of lives. He had won medals and honors that most soldiers could only dream of. But here, in this cold cell, he was just prisoner number 7749. Just another human for the aliens to study and break. "Today we try something new," Thekmos said. He nodded to the other 2 aliens. They carried a strange machine into the cell. It looked like a metal helmet with wires and tubes coming out of it. "This machine will help you remember things you have forgotten. Things about human military bases. Things about your defense systems." Hyun-woo felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. He had been trained for this. All high-ranking officers learned how to resist torture and mind-reading devices. The key was to stay calm and think about other things. "Put it on him," Thekmos ordered. The 2 aliens grabbed Hyun-woo and forced the metal helmet onto his head. It was cold and heavy. He could feel small needles pushing into his skin. The machine started to hum, and suddenly his head felt like it was full of electricity. Images flashed in his mind. Random memories from his past. His first day at the military academy, his mother's face. A battle near Jupiter where he had saved a civilian transport ship. The machine was trying to find military secrets in his memories, but Hyun-woo had trained for this. He thought about other things instead. He remembered cooking with his grandmother when he was small. He remembered learning to play piano. He remembered his first pet, a small dog named Bomi. Simple, peaceful memories that had nothing to do with the military. The machine hummed louder. The needles pushed deeper. The pain was getting worse, but Hyun-woo held on to his peaceful memories. "Interesting," Thekmos said as he watched the readings on a screen. This human's mind is more organized than the others we have tested. But everyone breaks eventually. Hours passed. The machine kept digging through Hyun-woo's memories. Sometimes it would find something military-related, and Thekmos would get excited. But Hyun-woo had prepared for this too. When the machine found real military memories, he would change them in his mind. He would think of wrong coordinates, wrong ship numbers, wrong battle plans. Let the aliens find lies instead of truth. Finally, the machine stopped. Thekmos looked angry. "Remove it," he ordered. The aliens took the helmet off Hyun-woo's head. His ears were ringing and his vision was blurry. Blood ran down his face from where the needles had been. "You are stronger than most humans," Thekmos admitted, "but this is only the beginning. We have many days ahead of us, many machines to try. Sooner or later, you will tell us what we want to know." "I already told you," Hyun-woo said quietly. "I'm just a transport pilot. I don't know anything about defense systems or military bases." Thekmos laughed. It was a horrible sound like metal scraping against stone. "Keep telling yourself that, little human. But we both know you are hiding something. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, you are not just a pilot." The alien was too smart for his own good. Hyun-woo would have to be more careful. "Take him back to his cell," Thekmos ordered. "Give him food and water. Let him rest. Tomorrow we will try again." The two other aliens grabbed Hyun-woo under his arms and dragged him back to the small cell. They threw him onto the cold floor and activated the energy chains again. The door slid shut with a hiss. Alone again, Hyun-woo closed his eyes and tried to control his breathing. His head still hurt from the machine, his body was tired and sore. But his spirit was not broken. Not yet. He thought about his crew back on Earth, about Admiral Park So-min, his old friend from the academy, about all the good people who were counting on him to keep their secrets safe. He would not let them down. No matter what the aliens did to him, somewhere in the darkness of space, he knew his people were looking for him. The Earth Defense Force never left anyone behind. They would come for him eventually. He just had to survive until they did. The ship hummed around him as it flew deeper into alien space. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more machines, more pain. But he would be ready. He was Captain Lee Hyun-woo, hero of Europa Station, architect of Seoul Defense. Even if the aliens never learned his real name, he would remember who he was. And someday, that would be enough to save him. The bridge of the UES Indomitable was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the gentle beep of sensors. Admiral Park So-min stood near the main view screen, watching the stars slowly drift by. Her ship was deep in space, far from Earth, following leads that might not go anywhere. So-min was tired. She had been hunting for 3 months now, chasing shadows and ghost signals across half the galaxy. Her crew was getting restless. They wanted to go home, back to their families and their normal lives, but So-min could not give up. "Not yet, Admiral," called Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho from this station. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." So-min walked over to his console. Tae-ho was young but very good at his job. He could find signals that other people missed. "What kind of strange?" "It's a communication signal, very weak. Looks like it's coming from a Krillian ship," Tae-ho pointed at his screen. "But there's something else mixed in with it. Something that doesn't belong." "Show me." Tae-ho pressed some buttons, and the main screen changed to show wave patterns and numbers. To most people, it would look like random noise. But So-min had been in the military for 20 years. She knew what to look for. "There," she said, pointing. "At a small pattern in the data. That's not Krillian. That's one of ours. A human signal?" Tae-ho asked. "More than that. It's a prisoner identification beacon. Every officer in the Defense Force has one implanted under their skin. If they get captured, it sends out a weak signal that only our ships can detect." So-min felt her heart start to beat faster. After 3 months of finding nothing, this could be the breakthrough they needed. "Can you clean up the signal? Get me an identification number?" Tae-ho worked at his console for several minutes. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried to separate the human signal from the alien noise around it. Finally, he looked up with excitement in his eyes. Got it, Admiral. Prisoner identification beacon number HDF 7749. So-Min stared. At the screen, she knew that number. She had memorized every missing person report that had come across her desk in the past 6 months. But this one was special. This one was impossible. Run it through the database, she said quietly. Taeho pressed more buttons. A few seconds later, a file appeared on the screen. So-Min read the name and felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. Captain Lee Hyun-woo. Status: killed in action. Location: Proxima System. Date: 3 months ago. That can't be right. Taeho said, the file says he's dead. So-Min closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She and Hyun-woo had been friends since the military academy. They had served together on 3 different ships. She had been at his promotion ceremony when he made captain. She had also been the one to write his death report when his transport ship was destroyed in a battle with pirates, but now his beacon was active. Somewhere out there, Hyun-woo was alive. Get me Dr. Choi, So-Min said. And call a meeting of all senior officers. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, So-Min sat in the ship's meeting room with her top officers. Dr. Choi Hai, the ship's science officer and alien expert, sat across from her. Commander Baek Dong-hyun, the ship's first officer, was on her right. Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho had brought his computer tablet to show everyone the signal data. Tell them what you found, So-Min said to Tae-ho. The young officer explained about the prisoner beacon and the identification number. When he said Hyun-woo's name, everyone in the room went quiet. But he's supposed to be dead, Commander Baek said. I saw the battle reports myself. His ship was completely destroyed. Maybe he escaped in a life pod, Dr. Choi suggested. Maybe the pirates picked him up instead of killing him. Or maybe, So-Min said slowly, his death was faked to protect him. If Han-woo was on a secret mission and got captured, the military might have reported him as dead to keep the enemy from knowing how important he is. Everyone looked at her with surprise. It was a crazy idea, but it made sense. Admiral, Commander Baek said carefully, if Captain Lee is alive and in enemy hands, we need to consider what that means. He knows things. Important things about our defenses, So-Min nodded. Hyun-woo was not just any captain. He had helped design the Seoul Defense Grid, the network of weapons and sensors that protected Earth. He knew the location of every human colony, every military base, every secret weapon the Defense Force had built. If the aliens broke him and got that information, it could mean the end of humanity's war effort. Where is the signal coming from? So-Min asked. Tae-ho looked at his tablet. A Krillian ship called the Subjugator. It's about 2 days away from our current position, moving slowly toward the Vega system. The Subjugator, Dr. Choi said with worry in her voice. I know that ship. It's their flagship. The biggest and most heavily armed vessel in the Krillian fleet. If they have Captain Lee on that ship, it means they know how important he is. So-Min stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked cold and distant. She was facing the hardest decision of her career. Her ship was designed for spying and gathering information, not for fighting. The Subjugator had enough firepower to destroy 100 ships like the Indomitable, but Hyun-woo was out there. Her friend, her fellow officer, a man who had saved thousands of lives and who knew secrets that could save thousands more. What are your orders, Admiral? Commander Baek asked. So Min turned back to face her officers. She could see the worry. In their eyes, they all knew this was dangerous. They all knew they might not come back alive. We're going after him, she said. Admiral, Dr. Choi said carefully, the Subjugator is not just any ship. It's surrounded by escorts, protected by the best shields and weapons the Krillians have. A direct attack would be suicide. Who said anything about a direct attack? So Min smiled for the first time in days. We're not going to fight them. We're going to sneak in and take him back. She walked back to the table and looked at each of her officers. The Indomitable has the best stealth technology in the fleet. We can get close without being detected. We can get a small team aboard their ship, and we can get Hai and Wu out before they know what happened. And if we get caught? Commander Beak asked. Then we fight our way out, but we're not leaving without him. Tejo raised his hand. Admiral, there's something else. The signal has been getting weaker over the past few hours. I think they're moving him deeper into the ship, or maybe they're using some kind of shielding to block the beacon. Somin felt a chill run down her spine. If the Krillians were blocking the beacon, it meant they were getting suspicious. Maybe they were starting to figure out that their prisoner was more important than they thought. How long before we lose the signal completely? She asked. Maybe a day, maybe less. Somin made her decision. Set course for the subjugator. Maximum stealth speed, and start preparing the infiltration team. We're going to get our captain back. As her officers left to carry out their orders, Somin stayed in the meeting room. She looked out the window at the stars and thought about her old friend. Hang on, Haiyan Wu, she thought. We're coming for you. The Indomitable changed course and began its hunt. In the darkness of space, the most advanced human warship ever built moved like a ghost toward its target. Soon, the Krillians would learn that humans never abandon their own. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of the subjugator, looking out at the endless stars. His ship was the pride of the Krillian Empire, a massive vessel that could destroy entire planets if needed. For months, they had been hunting human ships in this sector of space, and they had been very successful, but today something was different. Today, he had received new orders from the High Command on Krillia Prime. Commander, said his communication officer, turning from his station, High Command wants a status report on the human prisoner. Veltar nodded. The human they had captured 3 months ago was becoming more interesting every day. At first, they thought he was just another simple pilot who got caught in the wrong battle, but High Inquisitor Thekmos was starting to suspect there was more to this prisoner than met the eye. What does Thekmos report? Veltar asked. The human is showing unusual resistance to standard interrogation methods. The Inquisitor believes he may have military training beyond what a simple transport pilot would possess. Veltar felt a spark of interest. The Krillian Empire had been fighting humans for 2 years now, and they had learned that most humans broke easily under pressure. Their minds were simple and their bodies were weak, but occasionally they would capture one who was different, one who had secrets worth discovering. Tell the High Command that we will continue the interrogation with increased intensity, Veltar ordered. If this human knows something valuable, we will find out what it is. Deep in the ship's detention center, High Inquisitor Thekmos was preparing for another session with the human prisoner. He had been working on this case for weeks now, and he was starting to get frustrated. Most humans would have broken by now, but this one was different. Thekmos looked at the file on his computer screen. Prisoner 7749, captured during a battle near Proxima Centauri. Claims to be a transport pilot named Li Haiyan Wu. But something about his story did not add up. The way the human carried himself was wrong for a simple pilot. He was too calm, too controlled. When the pain machines were used on him, he showed the kind of discipline that came from serious military training. And his knowledge of spacecraft systems was far more detailed than any transport pilot would. Bring him to Interrogation Room 7, Thekmos ordered his assistants. And prepare the advanced neural probe. Today we dig deeper. Meanwhile, in his cell, Haiyan Wu was doing exercises. Push-ups, sit-ups, stretches. Anything to keep his body strong and his mind sharp. He knew the aliens were getting suspicious, but he could not let them see how worried he was. The energy chains around his wrists and ankles made movement difficult, but not impossible. Over the past few weeks, he had figured out how to work around them. Small movements that kept his muscles from getting too weak. Mental exercises that kept his mind focused on the right things. He thought about his training. Back on Earth, every high-ranking officer in the Defense Force learned how to resist interrogation. They practiced for weeks, learning how to separate their real memories from false ones, how to create mental barriers that would protect important information, how to feed lies to enemy mind-reading machines. The door to his cell opened with its familiar hiss. 3 Krillian guards entered, followed by Thekmos. The Inquisitor looked angry today, which meant the session was going to be particularly unpleasant. "Good morning, pilot," Thekmos said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Today we are going to try something new, something that will help you remember all the things you have been hiding from us." The guards unlocked Hyun-Woo's chains and dragged him to his feet. His legs were stiff from sitting in the same position for hours, but he forced himself to walk without showing weakness. Never show weakness to an enemy. That was rule number 1. They took him to a different room this time. It was larger than the others, with more machines and computer screens. In the center was a chair that looked more like a medical operating table. Wires and tubes connected it to a huge computer that hummed with electrical power. "This is our most advanced neural interface," Thekmos explained as the guards strapped Hyun-Woo to the chair. "It can read memories that you did not even know you had. Memories from when you were a child. Memories that your conscious mind has forgotten." Woo said nothing, but inside he was worried. This machine looked more dangerous than the others they had used on him. If it could really access deep memories, it might find things he could not control or change. The Inquisitor placed a metal helmet on Hyun-Woo's head. This one was different from before. It had more wires, more sensors, and it felt heavier. When they turned it on, the sensation was like having lightning running through his brain. Images flashed in his mind, but they were not images he was thinking about. They were memories from deep in his past. His first day at the military academy, his graduation ceremony, his first command, his promotion to captain. Thekmos watched the readings on his screen with growing excitement. Interesting, very interesting. These are not the memories of a transport pilot. These are military memories, training memories, command memories. Hyun-Woo tried to fight the machine, tried to think about other things, but it was too strong. It was pulling memories from parts of his brain he could not control. He saw himself designing the Seoul defense grid. He saw meetings with other high-ranking officers. He saw classified documents and secret battle plans. "Stop the machine," he said weakly. "I think not," Thekmos replied. "We are just getting to the interesting parts." The machine dug deeper. It found memories of Hyun-Woo's real identity, his real rank, his real importance to the human military. But it also found something else, something that Thekmos was not expecting. It found memories of other prisoners, other humans who had been captured by the Krillians. And it found something that made Thekmos' eyes go wide with surprise. It found memories of rescue missions. Successful rescue missions where human ships had tracked down Krillian vessels and taken their people back. "Turn off the machine," Thekmos ordered suddenly. His assistants looked confused. "Sir, but we were just starting to get useful information." "Turn it off now." They shut down the neural interface, and Hyun-Woo slumped in the chair, his head spinning and his vision blurry. But he had seen what Thekmos had seen. The machine had found memories of human rescue operations. And now the Inquisitor knew that humans came after their captured people. Thekmos stared at the computer screen, reading the data the machine had collected. This human was not just any pilot. He was someone important, someone valuable. And if he was this important, then other humans would be looking for him. "Get Commander Veltar down here immediately," Thekmos ordered, "and increase security around. The prisoner, double the guards, triple them if necessary." As they took Hyun-Woo back to his cell, he could see the worry in the aliens' movements. They were scared now. They knew they had caught something bigger than they had bargained for, back on the bridge. Commander Veltar received Thekmos' report with growing alarm. The human prisoner was not a simple pilot. He was a high-ranking officer with knowledge of human military operations. And worst of all, he knew about human rescue missions. "Send a message to all ships in this sector," Veltar ordered. "Tell them to watch for human vessels. If this prisoner is as important as Thekmos believes, then other humans will come looking for him. What kind of ships should we watch for, Commander? Asked his tactical officer, all of them, especially the ones we cannot see. Veltar had heard stories about human stealth ships, vessels that could move through space without being detected by normal sensors. Most Krillians thought these stories were just myths, but Veltar was not so sure. If the humans had captured one of their own important officers, they would send their best ship to get him back. And their best ship would be one that could sneak past all of the subjugators' defenses. Increase power to our sensor arrays, Veltar ordered, and put all fighter squadrons on high alert. I want every piece of space around this ship watched at all times. But even as he gave these orders, Veltar felt a chill of uncertainty. The humans had surprised the Krillian Empire before with their technology and their tactics. If they were coming for their officer, they would not make it easy to detect them. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the net was closing around the subjugator. But nobody knew yet who was the hunter and who was the prey. The UES Indomitable moved through space like a ghost. Its stealth systems made it almost invisible to enemy sensors. And Admiral Park So-min was counting on that technology to save her friend's life. She stood in the ship's briefing room, looking at the holographic display that showed the Krillian vessel called the Subjugator. The alien ship was huge, easily 10 times the size of her own vessel. It bristled with weapons and defensive systems that could destroy an entire fleet. Tell me about their security, So-min said to Dr. Choi G-Hi. Dr. Choi pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show the inside of the alien ship. The subjugator has 12 detention levels, each one more secure than the last. If they're holding Captain Lee, he's probably on level 9 or 10. That's where they keep their most important prisoners. Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho raised his hand. Admiral, we're still getting his beacon signal, but it's very weak now. I think they've moved him to a shielded area deep inside the ship. So-min nodded. That made sense. If the Krillians were starting to figure out how important Hyun-woo was, they would want to keep him as far from rescue as possible. What about getting inside? She asked. Commander Baek Dong-hyun pointed to different parts of the hologram. The ship has 16 docking bays, but they're all heavily guarded. There are also cargo transfer points along the hull, but those are monitored by automated systems. There's another way, Dr. Choi said quietly. The ship has maintenance tunnels that run between the outer hull and the inner sections. They're too small for normal crew members to use, but a human could fit through them. So-min studied the display. It was a crazy plan, but it might work. How do we get to these maintenance tunnels? We'd have to attach to the hull directly. Use cutting tools to make an opening. But we'd have to do it during a specific time when their sensor sweeps create a blind spot. How long would that give us? Maybe 20 minutes, 30 at most. So-min looked around the room at her officers. They all knew this was dangerous. They all knew the chances of success were very small. But they also knew that leaving Hyun-woo in alien hands was not an option. All right, she said, we're going to do this. Tae-ho, I want you to lead the infiltration team. Take Chen Min-ho and Park Woo-jin from security. Dr. Choi will provide technical support from here. Admiral, Commander Baek said carefully, if this goes wrong, if they detect us, the subjugator will call for backup. We could find ourselves facing the entire Krillian fleet. Then we better make sure it doesn't go wrong. For the next 6 hours, the crew of the Indomitable prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They studied the alien ship's design, practiced moving through tight spaces, and checked their equipment over and over again. Lieutenant Tae-ho put on his stealth suit, a piece of technology that would make him nearly invisible to most sensors. The suit was black as space and covered with tiny devices that bent light around his body. Chun Min-ho and Park Woo-jin wore similar suits. Remember, So-min told them as they prepared to leave, you have 30 minutes maximum. Get in, find Hyun-woo, and get out. Don't try to be heroes. If something goes wrong, abort the mission and come back. What if we can't find him in 30 minutes? Tae-ho asked. Then we try again later. But I won't lose any more people today. The 3 men climbed into a small stealth pod that would carry them to the alien ship. The pod was barely big enough for 1 person, let alone 3, but it was the Only way to get close without being detected. Launch when ready. So-min ordered. The pod separated from the Indomitable and began its slow approach to the subjugator. It moved carefully, staying in the shadow of a nearby asteroid field, using the natural background radiation to hide its energy signature. On the bridge of the subjugator, Commander Veltar was growing more worried by the hour. High Inquisitor Thekmos had reported that the human prisoner definitely had important military knowledge. That meant other humans would be coming for him. Status report from all sensor stations, Veltar ordered. Long-range sensors show nothing unusual, reported his tactical officer. Short-range sensors are clear. All defensive systems are operating normally. But Veltar was not satisfied. He had been fighting humans for 2 years, and he had learned not to underestimate them. They were clever, and they had technology that the Krillian Empire did not fully understand. Double the sensor sweeps, he ordered, and launch additional fighter patrols. If there are human ships out there, I want to find them before they find. U.S. Deep inside the ship, Hyun-woo was back in his cell, recovering from the latest interrogation session. The advanced neural probe had been worse than anything they had used on him before. He could still feel the aftereffects like electricity running through his brain, but he was also hopeful. The machine had revealed some of his memories to the aliens, but it had also shown them something else. It had shown them that humans came after their captured people. That meant his friends were looking for him. He thought about So-min and the rest of his old crew. They would not give up on him. He just had to stay alive and stay strong until they could find him. The small stealth pod reached the hull of the subjugator without being detected. Tae-ho carefully maneuvered it to a section of the ship that Dr. Choi had identified as a weak point in their sensor coverage. For the next 28 minutes, this area would be in a blind spot. "We're in position," Tae-ho whispered into his communicator. "Beginning hull breach." He activated a small cutting laser and began making a hole in the alien ship's armor. The metal was thick and strong, but human cutting tools were designed to work on any material. Slowly, carefully, he cut through the outer hull. Chun Min-ho and Park Woo-jin kept watch, their weapons ready in case they were discovered. But the aliens seemed to have no idea they were there. After 10 minutes, the hole was big enough for them to crawl through. Tae-ho went first, squeezing through the opening into a narrow maintenance tunnel inside the ship. The tunnel was dark and cramped, barely wide enough for a human to fit through. "We're inside," he reported, moving toward the detention levels now. The 3 men crawled through the maintenance tunnels, following a map that Dr. Choi had created from stolen alien technical documents. The tunnels were like a maze, branching off in different directions, connecting different parts of the massive ship. They moved as quietly as possible, but every sound seemed loud in the confined space. Their breathing, their movement, the soft rustle of their equipment. If any alien was listening in the right place, they would be discovered immediately. After 15 minutes of crawling, they reached a junction that should lead to detention level 9. Tae-ho carefully opened a small access panel and looked into the corridor beyond. 2 Krillian guards stood outside a heavily reinforced door. They were tall and intimidating, with weapons that could kill a human instantly. But they looked bored, like they had been standing there for hours. "Target acquired," Tae-ho whispered. 2 guards outside what looks like a high-security cell. This has to be where they're keeping him. "How do we get past the guards?" Chun Min-ho asked. Tae-ho smiled. Grimly, very carefully. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral So-min watched the mission unfold on her command screen. She could see the vital signs of her 3 team members, could hear their whispered reports, but she could not help them if things went wrong. 5 minutes. "Until the sensor blind spot ends," Dr. Choi reported. "They need to move fast." So-min clenched her fists. "Come on," she thought. "Find him and get out of there." Inside his cell, Hyun-woo suddenly felt something change. He had been sitting in the same position for hours, trying to recover from the neural probe session, when his military instincts kicked in. Something was different about the ship's routine. The guards outside his door were talking in hushed voices instead of their usual loud conversation. The ship's engines had changed their rhythm slightly, so small that most people would not notice. But Haiyan Wu had spent 20 years in space. He knew when something was not normal. He closed his eyes and listened carefully. There were new sounds in the walls around him. Tiny scratching noises that could be maintenance work, but the timing was wrong. The aliens always did maintenance work during their sleep cycle, not now. A smile crossed his face for the first time in weeks. Someone was coming for him. In the maintenance tunnel above his cell, Lieutenant Teho was studying the 2 Krillian guards through the small access panel. They were big and well-armed, but they looked tired. They had probably been standing there for hours without anything happening. "Chun, Park, listen carefully," Teho whispered into his communicator. "I'm going to create a distraction at the far end of the corridor. When the guards go to investigate, you two take them down quietly. No noise, no weapons fire. We can't alert the rest of the ship." "What kind of distraction?" Chun Minho asked. Teho pulled a small device from his equipment pack. It was a sound generator that could mimic various noises. "I'm going to make it sound like there's a problem with the environmental system down the hall. Guards always investigate system failures." He crawled through the tunnel to a position about 50 meters away from the guards, then activated the device. Immediately, alarms started beeping in the corridor, and red lights began flashing on the wall panels. The 2 guards looked at each other with concern. One of them spoke into his communicator, probably calling for instructions. After a brief conversation, both guards started walking toward the source of the alarms. "Now," Teho whispered. Chun and Park dropped down from the tunnel through another access panel, landing silently behind the guards. Before the aliens could react, the 2 humans struck them with stun weapons. The guards collapsed without making a sound. "Guards are down," Chun reported. "We have maybe 10 minutes before someone comes looking for them." Teho quickly crawled back through the tunnel and dropped down into the corridor. The 3 humans dragged the unconscious guards into a side room, then approached the heavily reinforced door of the high-security cell. The door had an electronic lock that looked more complex than anything they had seen before, but Dr. Choi had prepared them for this. Teho pulled out a small computer device and connected it to the lock's control panel. "Come on," he muttered as the device tried to break the alien security codes. "Come on." Inside the cell, Haiyan Wu heard the sounds of people working on his door. He stood up slowly, his body stiff from weeks of confinement, and moved as close to the door as his energy chains would allow. "If you're human, tap twice on the door," he called out softly. "Tap. Tap." Haiyan Wu felt tears come to his eyes. They had found him. His people had actually found him. "My identification code is HDF 7749, he said. "Captain Lee, Haiyan Wu, Seoul Defense Command." On the other side of the door, Teho felt his heart jump. They had found the right person. "Stand back from the door, Captain. We're coming in." The computer device finally broke through the alien security system, and the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Teho looked into the cell and saw a man who looked like he had been through hell. Haiyan Wu was thin and pale, with bruises on his face and arms, but his eyes were alert and determined. "Are you injured, sir?" Park Woo-jin asked as he worked on the energy chains that held Haiyan Wu. "Nothing that won't heal," Haiyan Wu replied. "But we need to move fast. They're starting to suspect I'm more than just a transport pilot." "We know, sir. Admiral Park sent us to get you out." At the mention of So-min's name, Haiyan Wu smiled. His old friend had not forgotten him. The energy chains finally released, and Haiyan Wu rubbed his wrists where they had been holding him. His legs were weak from weeks of inactivity, but adrenaline was helping him stay upright. "How are we getting out?" he asked. "Same way we came in, through the maintenance tunnels." Teho handed him a small communicator. "But first, Admiral Park wants to talk to you." Haiyan Wu put the communicator to his ear. "So-min?" "Haiyan Wu, thank God you're alive. Are you okay to move? I'll manage." "But So-min, listen to me carefully. They've been using advanced neural probes on me. They're starting to figure out who I really am. If they haven't already called for reinforcements, they will soon." There was silence on the communicator for a moment. Then So-min's voice came back, tight with concern. How much time do we have? Not much. Maybe an hour before they realize I'm gone and put the ship on full alert. Then we better hurry. Get to the extraction point as fast as you can. Meanwhile, several levels above them, High Inquisitor Thekmos was studying the data from the neural probe session. The more he analyzed it, the more convinced he became that their prisoner was someone very important in the human military structure. He had found memories of high-level meetings, classified information about human defense systems, and knowledge of military operations that only a senior officer would possess. This was not just any captain. This was someone who could change the course of the war if they could extract his secrets. Thekmos stood up from his desk and walked toward the detention levels. He wanted to begin another interrogation session immediately, using even more powerful methods than before. This human was going to tell him everything, whether he wanted to or not. In the corridor outside Hyungwoo's former cell, the four humans were moving as quickly and quietly as possible toward the maintenance tunnel entrance. Hyungwoo was struggling to keep up, his legs weak from weeks of confinement, but he refused to slow down the others. Almost there, sir, Chun whispered as they reached the access panel that led back to the tunnels, but just as Taeho was opening the panel, they heard footsteps echoing down the corridor. Someone was coming, multiple someones from the sound of it. Move, 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 Taeho hissed. Chun went first, climbing up into the narrow tunnel. Then Park, then Hyun-woo, moving slower than the others, but determined not to be left behind. Finally, Taeho pulled himself up and closed the access panel just as the footsteps reached their section of corridor. Through the panel, they could hear Krillian voices speaking in angry, urgent tones. Someone had discovered that the guards were missing. They know we're here, Hyun-woo whispered. The whole ship will be searching for us in minutes. Then we better move fast. Taeho replied. The four humans began crawling through the maintenance tunnels as quickly as they could. Behind them, they could hear alarms starting to sound throughout the ship. The hunt had begun. On the bridge of the subjugator, Commander Veltar received the news with a mixture of anger and fear. The human prisoner had escaped, which meant there were enemy agents aboard his ship. But more importantly, it meant his suspicions had been correct. The humans had come for their officer, just as he had predicted. Lock down all sections of the ship, he ordered. Seal every corridor, every room, every access tunnel. I want those humans found and captured alive. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, if there are humans aboard our ship, that means there's probably a human vessel nearby. Should we call for reinforcements? Veltar considered this. If he called for help, it would look like he could not handle the situation himself. But if there really was a human stealth ship out there, he might need the backup. Send a message to the nearest Krillian fleet units, he decided. Tell them we may need assistance dealing with a human infiltration. As the message was sent, Veltar looked out at the stars and wondered where the human ship was hiding. He knew it was out there somewhere, waiting for its people to return. But finding a stealth ship in the vastness of space was like finding a single grain of sand on a beach. The hunt was on, and neither side was going to give up easily. The maintenance tunnels were getting smaller and more difficult to navigate as the four humans crawled toward their escape point. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of Krillian search teams moving through the ship's corridors, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal walls. Hyun-woo was struggling to keep up. Weeks of imprisonment and torture had left him weak, and the narrow tunnel was hard on his stiff joints. But every time Taeho looked back to check on him, the captain waved him forward. They could not afford to slow down now. How much further? Chun Minho whispered. Maybe 10 more minutes, Taeho replied, checking his small navigation device. But we have a problem. According to this, there are Krillian teams searching the areas around our extraction point. Park Woo-jin looked worried. Can we find another way out? Not without going back through areas that are already being searched, Taeho said. We're going to have to take our chances with the original plan. On the bridge of the subjugator, Commander Veltar was growing more frustrated by the minute. His search teams had found the unconscious guards and the empty cell, but there was no sign of the humans who had taken the prisoner. "Status report," he demanded. "We've searched 60% of the ship," his security chief reported. "No sign of the intruders, but sir, we found something else. There's a small breach in the outer hull, Section 7 Alpha. It looks like it was cut from the outside." Valtar felt his blood run cold. That meant there really was a human ship out there, close enough to send a boarding party. A ship that his sensors could not detect. "Increase power to all sensor arrays," he ordered. "I want every piece of space around this ship scanned for anomalies. And send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we need immediate assistance." "Sir," his communication officer said, "I'm detecting some kind of interference with our long-range communications. We can send messages, but they're being degraded somehow." Valtar realized what was happening. The human ship was jamming their communications, making it harder for them to call for help. That meant the humans were preparing for something big. "All hands, battle stations," he announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill. We are under attack by human forces." Admiral Park So-min heard Veltar-'s announcement through the Indomitable's listening devices, and she smiled grimly. The Krillians were starting to panic, which was exactly what she wanted. "Status of the extraction team?" she asked. "They're almost to the extraction point," Dr. Troy reported. "But there are search teams moving in that area. It's going to be close, and our communications jamming, working perfectly. The subjugator can send messages, but they're full of static and interference. Any ships they're trying to call for help are going to have trouble understanding what they're saying." So-min nodded. "That would buy them some time, but not much. Eventually, the Krillians would find a way to get their message through, and then the Indomitable would be facing an entire enemy fleet." "Prepare for emergency pickup," she ordered. "As soon as our people are clear of that ship, we're getting out of here." In the maintenance tunnels, the four humans finally reached the section where they had originally entered the ship. But when Tejo looked through the access panel, he saw a problem. 3 Krillian soldiers were standing near the hole they had cut in the hull, examining it with scanning devices. "Guards at the extraction point," he whispered into his communicator. 3 of them, heavily armed. "Can you wait for them to move on?" So-min's voice came back through the communicator. "Negative. They look like they're setting up a permanent watch post. And we can hear more search teams getting closer to our position." Hyun-woo moved up beside Tejo and looked through the panel. His face was pale and drawn, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Let me see." After studying the situation for a moment, Hyun-woo smiled. "I have an idea. But it's going to require perfect timing." "What do you need us to do, sir?" Chun asked. "You 3 are going to create a distraction. A big one. Draw those guards away from the extraction point long enough for me to get to the hull breach." "Sir, with respect, you're in no condition to fight your way out alone," Park protested. "I'm not going to fight. I'm going to run. But first, I need you to make some noise." Tejo understood what the captain was planning. "You want us to start a firefight somewhere else in the ship, draw the search teams away from this area." "Exactly. Can you do it?" "Yes, sir. But what about getting you back to our ship?" Hyun-woo pulled out the communicator and spoke directly. "To So-min, I need you to bring the Indomitable in close. Very close. Close enough for a short-range emergency transport." There was silence on the communicator for a moment. Then So-min's voice came back, worried but determined. "Hyun-woo, that will mean decloaking right next to their ship. They'll see us immediately. I know, but it's the only way. Once you see my signal, you'll have maybe 60 seconds before every weapon on that ship starts firing at you. And if something goes wrong, if you don't make it to the extraction point..." Hyun-woo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Then you get out of here and make sure the information I've kept from them stays safe." So-min closed her eyes. She did not like this plan, but she could not think of a better one. "All right, we'll be ready." Tejo and his team moved through the tunnels to a position several corridors away from the extraction point. Then they dropped down into the ship and began their distraction. They set off small explosive charges, fired their weapons at computer terminals, and generally made as much noise as possible. The effect was immediate. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship, and the 3 guards at the hull breach ran toward the sounds of combat. Leaving the extraction point unguarded, Haiyan Wu waited until he was sure they were gone, then dropped down from the maintenance tunnel. His legs were shaky and his body was weak, but determination kept him moving. He made his way to the hole in the hull and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his old friend was waiting for him. He activated a small emergency beacon that would signal the Indomitable, then began the dangerous process of climbing through the hull breach. The hole was small and jagged, and he had to be careful not to cut himself on the sharp metal edges on the bridge of the Indomitable. Dr. Choi suddenly looked up from her console. "I'm getting Captain Lee's emergency signal." "Bring us in," So-Min ordered. "Full power to the engines, and prepare the transport beam." The Indomitable dropped its stealth field and accelerated toward the subjugator at maximum speed. For the first time, the Krillians could see the human ship clearly on their sensors. Human vessel approaching fast. The subjugator's tactical officer shouted, "Range, 2 kilometers and closing." Commander Veltar stared at the main screen in shock. The human ship was smaller than his vessel, but it was moving with incredible speed and precision. And it was heading straight for them. "All weapons, target that ship," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The subjugator's massive guns began firing, sending streams of energy and projectiles toward the approaching human vessel. But the Indomitable was fast and maneuverable, dodging most of the incoming fire while closing the distance. Haiyan Wu had made it through the hull breach and was now floating in space. Holding on to the outside of the Krillian ship, he could see the Indomitable approaching, its hull glowing with the light of weapons fire. It was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. "Transport lock established," Dr. Choi reported. "Bringing him aboard now." The transport beam grabbed Haiyan Wu and pulled him toward the human ship, just as the subjugator's weapons began to find their range. Energy blasts filled the space where he had been floating just seconds before. "Got him," Dr. Choi announced. "Captain Lee is aboard and safe." "Then let's get out of here," So-Min said. "Maximum speed, all power to engines." The Indomitable spun around and accelerated away from the subjugator, its engines glowing brightly as it built up speed. Behind them, the massive Krillian ship continued firing, but the human vessel was already too far away and moving too fast. In the ship's medical bay, Haiyan Wu was lying on a treatment bed, finally safe after months of imprisonment. He was weak and injured, but he was alive and free. So Dashmin came to see him as soon as the ship was clear of immediate danger. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just escaped from hell," Haiyan Wu replied with a weak smile. "Thank you, So-Min." "I knew you'd come for me. We never leave anyone behind." "You know that? What's our status?" "We're clear of the subjugator, but they're calling for reinforcements. We need to get back to human space as quickly as possible." Haiyan Wu nodded, then closed his eyes. For the first time in months, he felt safe enough to truly rest. The Yu's Indomitable was running for its life through the darkness of space. Behind them, the massive Krillian ship subjugator was giving chase, its weapons lighting up the void with deadly energy beams. Admiral Park So-Min stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as more enemy ships appeared on their sensors. "3 more Krillian vessels approaching from the port side," reported the tactical officer. "They'll intercept us in 12 minutes at our current speed." So-Min clenched her fists. The rescue had been successful, but now they were trapped. The subjugator was too fast to outrun, and reinforcements were coming from all directions. Soon, they would be surrounded by an entire enemy fleet. "Can we jump to hyperspace?" she asked. "Negative," came the reply from the engineering station. "The Krillians are using some kind of gravity field generator. It's preventing us from opening a hyperspace window." In the medical bay, Captain Lee Haiyan Wu was trying to recover from his months of imprisonment. Dr. Choi had given him medicine for his injuries and food to help restore his strength, but he could hear the sounds of battle preparation throughout. "The ship, how bad is it?" he asked Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho, who had come to check on him. Pretty bad, sir. We're outnumbered 4-1, and they're preventing us from jumping to hyperspace. Admiral Park is trying to find a way out, but options are limited. Hyun-woo tried to sit up, despite the doctor's orders to rest. I need to get to the bridge. There might be something I can do to help. Sir, you're in no condition to. That's an order, Lieutenant. Tae-ho helped Hyun-woo to his feet and supported him as they made their way through the ship's corridors. The Indomitable shook as enemy weapons' fire struck the shields, and emergency lights flashed red throughout the vessel. On the bridge, So-min was running out of ideas. The Krillian ships were closing in from all sides, and their weapons were slowly wearing down the Indomitable's defenses. She had maybe 10 minutes before the shields failed completely. Admiral, called the communication officer. The subjugator is hailing us. Commander Veltar wants to talk. Put him on screen. The main view screen flickered, and the alien commander's face appeared. His gray skin looked angry, and his black eyes were filled with rage. Human Admiral, Veltar said in his grinding voice, you have made a grave mistake. Return our prisoner immediately, and I will allow your ship to leave unharmed. So-min stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Commander Veltar, the man you call your prisoner is Captain Lee Hyun-woo of the Earth Defense Force. He is under my protection, and I will not be handing him over to anyone. Then you have chosen death for? Yourself and your crew. Maybe, but at least we'll die free. Veltar's expression became even more menacing. You humans think you are so brave, so noble, but you are just insects compared to the might of the Krillian Empire. We will crush you like the worthless creatures you are. At that moment, the bridge doors opened, and Hyun-woo walked in, supported by Tae-ho. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, he stood as straight as he could and looked directly at the alien commander on the screen. Hello, Veltar, he said quietly. Miss me? The alien's eyes widened with shock and fury. Impossible. You should be in a cell on my ship. I was. But you made a mistake. You underestimated what humans will do for each other. Veltar recovered his composure and smiled coldly. It does not matter. You are still trapped. In 5 minutes, you will all be dead or captured. The choice is yours. Actually, Hyun-woo said, moving slowly toward the communication console, I have a different idea. He activated the ship's external speakers and began to speak, his voice broadcasting on all frequencies so that every Krillian ship could hear him. This is Captain Lee Hyun-woo, service number HDF 7749, hero of Europa Station, architect of Seoul Defense. I want every Krillian in this fleet to know exactly who they're dealing with. On the subjugator, Commander Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The human was revealing his true identity, his real importance. But why? Hyun-woo continued speaking, his voice growing stronger. I am the man who designed the defense grid that protects Earth. I am the man who commanded the fleet that destroyed your invasion force at Proxima. I am the man who holds in his memory the location of every human colony, every military base, every secret weapon we have built. The Krillian ships had stopped firing, their commanders listening in amazement to this human officer's bold declaration. For 3 months you tortured me. You tried to break my mind and steal my secrets, but you failed. And now I'm free, and your precious intelligence is gone forever. So-min looked at her old friend with concern. Hyun-woo, what are you doing? Something I should have done a long time ago, he replied, then turned back to the communicator. But here's what you really need to know, Veltar. The reason your empire will never defeat humanity. It's not because we have better weapons or faster ships. It's because we never abandon our own. On the bridge of the subjugator, Veltar was growing more angry by the second. Enough of this. All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel immediately. But before any of the Krillian ships could fire, something unexpected happened. The ship's artificial intelligence system activated, responding to Hyun-woo's voice and identification. Captain Lee Hyun-woo, the Indomitable's computer announced in a clear, synthetic voice that echoed through space on all communication frequencies. Authorization recognized. Service record confirmed. Hero of Europa Station, architect of Seoul. Defense grid implementing rescue protocol Omega. The computer's declaration sent shockwaves through both the human and alien crews. To the Krillians, it seemed as though the human ship itself was speaking their prisoner's name with reverence and respect. What is this? Veltar demanded. Hyan Wu smiled for the first time since his capture. This is what happens when you mess with the wrong species. The Indomitable's weapon system suddenly came online with a power level that the Krillians had never seen before. The ship's defensive shields flared to life with energy that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. All weapon systems online, the ship's AI continued. Maximum power to shields and engines. Initiating combat protocols designed by Captain Li Hyan-Wu. So-Min looked at her tactical display in amazement. Her ship's power readings were off the charts. Somehow, the recognition of Hyan-Wu's identity had activated hidden systems that she did not even know existed. Hyan-Wu, what did you do to my ship? I installed some upgrades before my last mission, he replied. Emergency protocols that would only activate if I was ever captured and rescued. The AI has been waiting for. My voice, my identification, my authorization. The Indomitable began to move with speed and agility that defied physics. It spun around the attacking Krillian ships like a dancer, its weapons firing with perfect accuracy. Each shot found its target, disabling enemy weapons and engines without destroying the ships completely. Impossible, Veltar breathed as he watched his fleet being systematically disabled by a single human vessel. You wanted to know about human military capabilities, Hyan-Wu said into the communicator. Well, now you know. We build our ships not just to fight, but to remember. Every human who serves, every sacrifice made, every hero lost, it all becomes part of our technology, part of our strength. The Indomitable completed its attack run, leaving all 4 Krillian ships dead in space, their weapons and engines destroyed but their crews alive. The human ship had demonstrated its superiority without unnecessary killing. This is impossible, Veltar repeated, staring at his darkened bridge displays. No, Hyan-Wu replied calmly. This is humanity. We remember our heroes. We come for our people, and we never, ever give up. The Indomitable's AI spoke one final time. Mission completed. Captain Li Hyan-Wu successfully recovered, all enemy vessels neutralized, ready for hyperspace jump. Jump when ready, So-Min ordered, and the human ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the disabled Krillian fleet floating in space. In the silence that followed, Veltar sat in his command chair, trying to understand what had just happened. The humans had not just rescued their officer, they had made a statement that would echo throughout the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. 3 weeks after the rescue, Captain Li Hyan-Wu stood in the medical center on Earth Station Alpha, looking out at the blue marble that was his homeworld. His body had mostly healed from the months of torture, but his mind still carried the memories of everything he had endured. Dr. Choi Ji-hai finished her final medical examination and smiled. You're cleared for active duty, Captain. Your physical condition is back to normal, and the psychological evaluations show no permanent damage. Thank you, Doctor. Hyan-Wu turned from the window. Any word on the debriefing results? Admiral Park is waiting for you in Conference Room 7. The full High Command wants to hear your report. Hyan-Wu made his way through the stations, corridors, noting how different everything felt after his months in captivity. The clean air, the bright lights, the sounds of human voices speaking freely, it all seemed precious now in a way it never had before. In the conference room, Admiral Park So-Min sat at a long table with 5 other high-ranking officers. They all stood when Hyan-Wu entered, showing respect for what he had endured. Captain Li, said Admiral Kim Jong-soo, the head of Earth Defense Command, please sit down. We have much to discuss. Hyan-Wu took his seat at the table. I assume you want to know about the Krillian interrogation methods and what information they managed to extract? Actually, So-Min said, we want to know about something else first, what you did during the rescue operation. The hidden protocols in the Indomitable systems. Admiral Kim leaned forward. Captain, our engineers have been studying your ship. Modifications for weeks. The technology you installed goes beyond anything in our current arsenal. Where did it come from? Han-Wu was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. During my work on the Soul Defense Grid, I came across some experimental research projects. Advanced AI systems, enhanced weapons technology, improved shield generators. Most of it was theoretical at the time. But you implemented it anyway? I implemented contingency plans. Emergency systems that would only activate under specific circumstances. If I was ever captured and rescued. If the ship's AI recognized my identity and authorization codes if we were facing overwhelming odds. He paused. I never thought they would actually be needed. Admiral Park Soo-jin, the head of intelligence, spoke up. Captain, the Krillian Empire has launched a full investigation into what happened. Our spies report that the entire incident has shaken their military leadership. They're calling it the Ghost Ship Incident. What are they saying? That human technology is far more advanced than they believed. That human ships are not just machines, but somehow alive, capable of remembering and honoring their crews. They're treating your rescue as proof that humanity possesses almost supernatural loyalty and technological capabilities. Han-Wu nodded. Good, let him think that. Fear is a powerful weapon. Admiral Kim stood up and walked to a large display screen on the wall. It showed a map of known space, with human and Krillian territories marked in different colors. The political situation has changed dramatically since your rescue, he said. 3 Krillian border fleets have withdrawn from contested systems. Their attacks on human colonies have decreased by 60%. And several alien species that were considering allying with the Empire have now opened diplomatic channels with us instead. Why? Because word of your rescue has spread throughout the galaxy. The story of how Admiral Park's ship spoke your name and opened fire has become legend. Other species are starting to see humanity as a force to be respected, not conquered. So-min pulled out a datapad and showed it to Han-Wu. Look at this. It's a communication we intercepted from a Zephyrian trade delegation. They're calling humans the species that remembers their heroes, and the people whose ships fight with the spirits of their ancestors. Han-Wu read the translation and couldn't help but smile. They think our AI systems are some kind of spiritual technology, apparently, and it's working in our favor. The Zephyrians want to establish trade relationships with us. The Altarian Republic is offering a mutual defense pact. Even some of the neutral worlds are starting to see us as potential allies instead of primitives. Admiral Kim returned to his seat. Captain, we want to offer you a new assignment. We're establishing a new division called Advanced Defense Systems. Its job will be to develop and implement the kind of technology you used on the Indomitable. We want you to head it up. Han-Wu was surprised. I'm honored, Admiral, but I'm a ship. Captain, not a research scientist. You're also the man who designed our most successful defense grid and apparently created ship modifications that our best engineers are still trying to understand. We need someone who thinks outside the normal boundaries. So-min leaned forward. Han-Wu, what you did out there changed everything. Not just the rescue, but the message it sent to the galaxy. Humanity is not going to be seen as weak or primitive anymore. We have a chance to shape the future of interstellar relations. What about the Krillian Empire? They're not going to give up just because of one incident. No, Admiral Kim agreed. But they're going to think twice before underestimating us again. And that gives us time to prepare, time to build stronger defenses, time to form alliances with other species. Admiral Park Soo-jin pulled out another datapad. We've also learned something interesting from our analysis of the Krillian ship data you provided. Their empire is not as unified as they want everyone to believe. There are factions within their government that are questioning the war effort. You think they might be willing to negotiate? Eventually. But first we need to make sure we're negotiating from a position of strength. That's where your new division comes in? Han-Wu stood up and walked back to the window. Looking out at Earth, after months of captivity, the sight of his home world never got old. But he also thought about all the other human worlds out there, the colonies and stations full of people. who were counting on the military to protect them. "All right," he said finally, "I'll take the assignment. But I have some conditions." "Name them," Admiral Kim said. "First, I want to work with the people who rescued me. Lieutenant Tae-ho Chun, Min-ho Park Woo-jin. They proved they can think under pressure and work as a team." "Agreed." "Second, I want access to all experimental research projects, not just the ones that have been approved by committee. Sometimes the best ideas come from the projects that seem crazy at first." "Reasonable." "And third, I want every ship in the fleet to be equipped with the same kind of emergency protocols that the Indomitable had. No more leaving people behind, no more lost heroes." Admiral Kim smiled. "Captain, I think we can arrange all of that." 6 months later, the first ships equipped with Hyun-woo's advanced defense systems began their shakedown cruises. The technology was revolutionary AI systems that could adapt to any combat situation, weapons that could be reconfigured in real time, shields that grew stronger under fire. But more than the technology itself, it was the philosophy behind it that made the difference. Every ship now carried the memory of every human who had served, every sacrifice that had been made, every hero who had fallen. The crews knew that their ships would remember them, would fight for them, would never abandon them. The story of Captain Lee Hyun-woo's rescue became part of human military tradition. New recruits learned about the day when a warship spoke a hero's name and proved that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their loyalty to each other. In alien space, the story grew and changed in the telling. Some species said that human ships were haunted by the spirits of dead warriors. Others claimed that human technology was powered by the souls of their ancestors. The truth didn't matter as much as the effect throughout the galaxy. Humanity was now seen as a species that should not be crossed. Commander Veltar, after his ship was repaired and he was allowed to return to active duty, often found himself staring out at the stars and wondering about the humans. He had held one of their most important officers prisoner for months, had tortured him and tried to break his spirit. But in the end, it was the Krillian Empire that had been broken. At least in spirit, the war between the Krillians and humans continued, but it was different now, more cautious, more respectful. Both sides knew that they were facing an enemy that would never give up, never surrender, and never leave their people behind. And sometimes, late at night when the ship was quiet, Veltar could swear he heard something in the depths of space, a voice calling out names, speaking with reverence and love about heroes who had fallen and heroes who had yet to rise. It was the sound of humanity, remembering its own, the sound of a species that would never be defeated, because it would never forget who it was fighting for.